Welcome to the Refuse Ordinary podcast. I'm your host, Tamara, and I'm so glad you've decided to join us on this journey of discovering who God is and who we are in Him. We are so excited to share with you today another class from our full-time School of Transformation. Today's topic is called Love is Selflessness, taught by Lisa Bowers. We hope you grow in truth as you listen to this teaching.
So we're going to talk today about love is selfless. So this is a big one because the majority of our lives we have been taught how to be selfish. It's a very unique thing for families to teach selflessness and not selfishness because our whole world is derived by it, right? Our whole world is telling us that we need to have self-care, we need to have time off, we need to have our priorities straight, family needs to be first. And according to the Bible, that is all wrong, right? According to what Jesus said, the standard that He sets, that is selfishness, not selflessness. Now, does He think family is important? Absolutely. 100%. He created it. It's actually supposed to be a reflection of the relationship that you have with Him, right? So He created relationship. He created family. Family is important. But when we put family above Him, that's where we go wrong, right? But the world tells us that we are crazy when we don't put family first. We're neglecting our children. We're neglecting our spouses. We're neglecting our families if we don't put them first, right? And they even have it so much, they have it right in an area where they put themselves second, right? Your family's first and then you can come second. And that sounds really, really good. And actually to anybody else, that's a great method of living. You actually are putting somebody above yourself, right? But at what sacrifice? At what sacrifice are you putting your family above yourself? Are you putting it even above God? So Steve tells a story, which I'm sure you'll hear if you are here long enough and around, if you haven't heard it already, where he talks about the day that he said, God, if you took one of my children, I would have a hard time trusting you. I would have a hard time with that. Right? And then instantly he was corrected and said, wait, what am I doing? Jesus, if you took one of my children, I would serve you. I would serve you. Right? Because the thing is when you put your kids above God and say, I would have a hard time serving and loving you if you took one of my children, there's an ultimatum. It means that He's allowed to be God only if it's under your terms. He's allowed to be Savior in your life if it's under what you think, right? You can have everything, but you can't have my kids. You can have everything, but you can't have my spouse. You can have everything, but you can't have my house. You can have everything, but you can't have my finances. You can have everything, but you can't have my Saturdays, right? It doesn't work like that. It's all or selfishness. Because you have to put Him first. When you put Him first and you stick your kids and your spouse and your friends and your family and yourself under the umbrella of His protection, they're safe. Now, are they safe from what you might consider a worst nightmare? No. And we have experience in that. We have people around us that have experience in that, where it's like their worst nightmare came true. Spouse is gone, children gone. And in those moments, when you've learned to put God first, doesn't mean it doesn't hurt. Doesn't mean He wants you to forget it. Doesn't mean that He wants you to push it aside. Pretend it's not happening. Pretend you don't feel it. But when you learn to put Him first and when you learn to put yourself and everybody under Him, you learn what it's like to be covered in amongst that grief, in amongst that pain, in amongst that crazy season and seasons of walking it out. But when he's there, it's so much safer, and you can feel love so much deeper instead of this way around. If God's on the bottom and your kids and your spouse and your family are up here and they're not under his covering and you're not under his covering, but you say you are, you say you're a Christian, you say you love Jesus, but only if you don't touch my children, only if you don't touch my spouse, only if you don't touch my finances, only if you don't touch my house, only if you do this, only if you do that. You're putting God so low down here, he doesn't actually get to be your covering. He doesn't actually get to be your safe place, right? You don't actually get to be protected and feel that incredible love that he has because you've put everything else above it. And that's when Christians say, well, where was God? People that have loved Jesus raised their hands, quoted him, said, Jesus is real, he changed my life. And then catastrophe happens, and where is God? Now, don't get me wrong. There are those moments where you're like, what is happening? Right? But there's a what is happening and where are you? There's a difference. Right? And so when you have all of the people that you love underneath God's covering, and you say, Jesus, I will follow you no matter what. They're safe there. You're safe there. You'll know what it's like to be connected to the vine. You'll know what it's like to be connected to the source of true love. So when something happens and when storms arise, because it's not if they arrive, it's when they arrive. When the storms come, who are you going to be connected to? And the world tells us, oh, well, you need to put family first. They're more important. They're more important than church. You have a family gathering on a Sunday? Don't miss it. They're more important than church. That was what I grew up with. My family put most things on Sundays, and it was either church or family. You pick. And I picked family, and I was wrong. And I picked family over him, and I was wrong. And I watched it become this slow shift away from him in my life. I watched compromise come in. After I already said I was a Christian, I watched it sneak in and just slowly take me down a path that I never thought I wanted to be on. Never thought I'd be on. But it was because I didn't put the order right. I didn't put him first. I didn't exercise what it is to be a Christian where this is not my life anymore. It's all yours, Jesus. And in that, you experience this incredible connection with him, this incredible love, a love that's so deep that it's the only thing that you've been searching for your whole life. It's the reason why people search for love. It's the only reason people search for love. It's because you are made for love. That's what you were created for. That's what the inside of your whole entire being, that's what your emotions and your personality and your heart and all of the things about you, they crave a love that only God can fulfill. Now, he really does cool things when he gives us people in our life to love us. He does really cool things when he connects and says, hey, I'm gonna have a spouse for you that you're going to learn what it's like to love them selflessly. But the world doesn't example that, and we often fall into the world. We often say, oh, well, I can live like that and like that. And the truth is we can't, right? So the world is inherently selfish. It doesn't know anything different, and it's because that's what the enemy's created. Now, what God has created is this selfless love that he has designed and that he has asked us to example in our life. And we fall short all the time. We fall short when it comes to our kids. We fall short when it comes to our spouse. We fall short when it comes to our friends. We fall short when it comes to all the people in our life, right, that are close to us. our families. And he asks us to be selfless. But what we've grown up with is selfish. So then we have to reconcile in our heart, how do we become selfless when the only thing I've known is selfish, right? I always say that marriage is a really great magnifying glass for all the selfish little parts in you, right? Because a marriage won't actually stand if two people are just all about themselves, right? You actually have to have this crazy relationship where you are for each other, serving each other, loving each other selflessly. But most of the time in this world, we are selfish. And one's going this way, pursuing what they think they want for their life and what their needs are. And the other one's going this way with their needs and what their needs are. And why aren't you meeting my needs? And why can't you meet my needs? And don't you see me over here? And why aren't you doing this for me over here? And I'm always doing this and you're never doing this, right? And then you just grow further and further apart. You don't ever come together. And then all of a sudden people are falling out of love. And then it becomes emotion. Then love is an emotion. Well, love isn't just an emotion. Love is very complicated. And we know this as adults, right? Love is very complicated. It's not just heart feelings. Because if it was just determined by heart feelings, we'd be probably in and out of love every other day. Oh, I love them. Oh, I can't stand them today. Oh, I love them. Oh, they're irritating me today. Oh, I love them. Right? It's like, and we just are constantly choosing ourselves when we're in those kinds of relationships, and then we fall out of love when really what he's asked us to do is to choose each other every single day above yourself, right? And that's what he's asked us to do in marriage because it's supposed to be an example of what it's like with him. My goal isn't to read the Bible to get what I want out of it. My goal is to read the Bible to find out who is God. Who are you? Who are you so that I can get to know you? Who are you so that I get to know what you like and what you don't like? Who are you when I get to, so that I get to see who it is that I'm serving and who it is that I get to serve, right? And so we literally are built for our relationships to mimic our relationship with God. But what we do is we transpose what we think love is and what our relationships look like onto what God is. Well, if you are in a relationship that's flippant or that's on and off or that's devoid of love or that's very tumultuous or full of greed or full of infidelity, then you're going to be taking that example and placing it on God. We do that with a lot of things in our life. Our parents were the first example of what love was. If we're abandoned by our parents, guess what we are going to come up with love? Not the right idea. Not the right idea at all. If your parents chose something else besides you, they didn't do it the way God intended. They served a selfish love to you, and that's what they taught you. That their drugs, that their life, that everything else was more important than you. Work, right? And the thing that they're supposed to be exampled is that God comes first. And then I'm loving you with all my heart. And I'm serving my kids. It is hard to serve them at 3 a.m., at 2 a.m., at 1 a.m., right? It's hard to serve them when you're up all night long. It's hard to serve them when they're constantly telling you no, constantly telling you, you don't know, or whatever backhanded comment they want to throw at you that day, right? But that's the example we're supposed to be. See, the thing is that we've been shown and taught these types of love, and then we just assume, oh, that's love. That's the definition. And we have so many definitions of love. Oh, I love my coffee. Oh, I love my grass. I love the smell of fresh cut grass. I love ice cream. Oh, I love the beach. Oh, I love my children. Oh, I love God. All of it seems to be on the same playing field. And actually, it's not designed that way. It's not supposed to be on the same playing field at all. Loving God is supposed to be like above everything else, right? But loving God and loving ice cream in our world, and I'm talking our world, is on the same playing field. And it can't be that way because that creates a selfish type of love, right? Ice cream works for you. It fills you up, satisfies the craving that you've had, right? It's a silly example. But we expect then God to be this vending machine God where it's like, I've served you, haven't I? I've laid my life down for you, haven't I? Mostly. Except for that one time, or except when it comes to this. I've given you all, haven't I? And he's like, actually, no, you haven't. There's still these areas. You still don't submit your finances to me. You still don't submit your time to me. You still don't submit your energy to me. That's still yours. And he's like, will you give it all? Because what I've come to do is trade you. I've come to trade you your life for mine. That's why Jesus died on the cross, so that we could actually live his life. But not half ours and half his. Because the half that's ours is still filtered with this selfishness. And he's called us to be selfless. Steve does this thing in marriage counseling, and it's the thing that 8 years in, you still remember. And some people don't remember their marriage counseling at all. But there's major keys that he gave me that I'm like, I will never forget this. I will make sure that I never forget this. And that one of them is the selfless nature of marriage. You have to be for each other. You have to be serving each other and choosing each other, knowing that it is God's will that you got married. That's why Steve asks at every wedding, do you know that it's God's will that today you marry this person? And 100% I knew without a shadow of a doubt, it was God's will that I married my husband.
Oh, that's a question. That's not a statement.
That's a question that he asks us. Do you know? And my statement is yes, it is God's will that I married Johnny Bowers. I made that vow, that statement, that decision. That decision solidified the fact that I'm thinking this is God's will for my life. Otherwise, I wouldn't have made the decision. Right? Now, sometimes we make decisions when we're not in him, and they affect our whole life. But on the day I married him, I was asked a question, do you believe that this is God's will that you marry John Bowers? My answer is yes. So if my answer is yes, then God's will doesn't change. It doesn't change in 20 years. It doesn't change in 10 years when I don't feel like I want to be married to the guy. Don't worry, babe. It's not going to happen. Right? It's like I'm literally committing my life to love him until one of our last breaths. So then it's God's will until one of our last breaths, whichever one it is, that I am married to him and that I am committed to him and that I serve him and that I love him and that my life is devoted to be selfless for him. Now, John Bowers did not live a very selfless life before he met Jesus. He lived a very selfish life. It was all about him, what he could get, how he could get it, and when he could get it. It was just about him, right? And so there are some people in Orville that we bump into that he has a past with, but they don't know him anymore. They think they know John Bowers, but they don't know John Bowers. They think they know who he is, and they might have even had a past with him, but they don't actually know him anymore. Because what he did was he actually gave his life to Jesus and traded him. You can have my selfish, dirty, filthy life full of what I wanted, how I hurt people, when I hurt people, all of the things. You can have all of it. And I just have to put your life on. I have to choose you, Jesus. I have to take you on and assimilate myself into being who you are. I have to believe that you've come, washed me clean, transformed me, and now I get to be Jesus. An image of him. Jesus, I get to have your life. Him and me and him, the whole bit. So now he bumps into these people, and it's a different guy they meet. Completely different guy. There is no part in me that has ever become jealous or felt weird or any of it. And this is the reason why. This is because they don't know him. They don't know him like I know him. When I married John Bowers, I married a new creation. I didn't marry the old guy. They were with the old guy. They've never been with this new guy. I'm the only one that has. Right? Because he's a new creation. He is selfless. And we have created an incredible marriage over 8 years by choosing each other, even when we didn't want to. Even when it's crazy and life is crazy and we're up all hours of the night and everybody's cranky and kids are crying and it's just crazy in the house. It's crazy in the life, right? It's like, oh, you still make the choice to choose. I still choose to serve you today. And it's like that with your kids. Sometimes it's crazy and the only thing you're just like, okay, go spend some time sitting on your bed, take a minute, breathe. I have to go serve my kids now, right? I have to go make dinner. I have to do all of the stuff, dishes, housework, homework. I mean, the list goes on. When you have small babies, it's 24/7, constantly, every moment of the day, they need something from you, right? And I remember at some point thinking in myself, the choice is now mine whether I serve this small baby or not. I am exhausted. I don't feel like I can do one more thing. I still have to cook dinner for my family. It's not just, me and this child. I still have to make sure when he comes home that there's dinner ready because it'll be 5:00. And then we're off to the next thing. And I have a newborn and a toddler. And dinner takes a long time because I have a newborn and a toddler, right? It's just like I have to, in those moments, make a decision. I have to serve my family today. When it would be easier to just be like, fend for yourself. And there have been days. There have been days where he's called me and said, no, don't even worry about it. Put the kids down, have a sit down, make yourself a hot cup of coffee, just take a minute. I'll figure out dinner when I get home. Right? It's never been an expectation, but I want to serve. And there are moments in those days when they're crazy and the kids are nuts and you just are ongoing and you're trying to do ministry and all of the stuff that you think, I have a recognition of why some parents disconnect from their kids, because this is hard. I realize why some people in their hurt and dysfunction would disconnect from their children and even potentially run away from it, because this is hard. And if we aren't equipped to do hard things and we can't muster the strength to do hard things, then we will run from the things that are hard, right? But in those moments, I have to choose selflessness in a love for my children, in a love for my husband. It's not about me anymore. It's not about whether I had a shower that day or whether my needs got met or whether I even had a hot cup of coffee, because I don't know when that happens. So I switched to iced coffee so I don't have to worry about it. Right? But it's like, I get the whole decision-making process on choosing love. But when Jesus died on the cross, he chose that day. He chose you before you even said yes to him. He chose you knowing that you might say no to him. He chose you knowing that today you might say yes and tomorrow you might say no. And he still died on the cross. And I don't know about you, but I don't know how I would do that. And yet I am called to it. And yet he's asked me to do this. And yet he says, hey, this is something that you're going to have to do. You're going to have to choose love when they hate you. You're going to have to choose to serve when they spit at you. You're going to have to choose to serve when they want to kill you. And what are you going to do with that? Right? And so these little tiny things, as we're growing in Jesus and as we're growing our relationship with God and as we're growing our Christianity, as we're getting to know love, as we're trying to figure this stuff out, it's these little decisions on serving somebody else, something else besides yourself, that will create a really good muscle in your life. It'll be the selfless muscle. We have been exercising the selfish muscle for years of our life. And he's saying it's time. It's time to get rid of the selfishness. It's time to start working out this selfless muscle. We have plenty of opportunity at the Father's House Church to work this muscle out. Plenty. It's crazy. And yet, at the same time, he's calling us saying, hey, do you believe that I called you here? On the hard days, do you believe that this is what was my will for your life? And it's why we ask some of the tough questions the very first week of school. Do you believe that God sent you here for this 6 months? I'm not talking about the next 6 months. I'm not talking about whatever. I'm talking about right now. These 6 months right here, right now, do you believe that God sent you here? Do you believe that it is his will that he placed you here and that you said yes to his will? Because if it's his will, even when it's hard, it's still his will. Even when you don't feel like getting up and doing it, even when you don't feel like doing the things you got to do, even though you don't feel, it's still going to produce something in you when you get up and when you do the things, when you can consistently be the person that shows up to say, Jesus, I am tired today, but I say yes to you. I do not want to be cold today, but I say yes to you. I don't know how to wrap lights, but I say yes to you. I don't know how to do what they're asking me, but I say yes to you. Right? It's like it works out the muscle of selflessness. And it starts to diminish the muscle of selfishness. When you don't use your muscles, they do something called atrophy. You can't walk anymore if you don't use your legs. Right? So a lot of people that have been in accidents, that have been in bed for a long time or have been just in bed for a long time because they're sick, their muscles start to atrophy if they don't have physical therapy to continue to move those muscles. And they will have to learn how to redo things in their life because their muscles will atrophy. We want the selfish muscle to atrophy. We want it to be diminished, dissipated, and not being able to be used anymore. And we want to be able to work out this selfless muscle so that it is strong and capable, and that is love. So if you say, I don't know how to love, well, you just choose somebody over yourself. That's love. Then yes, you do know how to love. You say yes to doing something you don't want to do, but you know it's good for you, and you know it's what's being asked of you. That's love. You saying yes to a Yeovil shift, gym shift, extra night at Lights of Hope, whatever it is, you fill in the blanks. Stopping and talking to somebody on the street corner. Looking up and smiling and saying hello or opening a door for somebody. In this world, those little tiny things, that's love. Because it's those little things that nobody does anymore. Everybody's so focused on themselves. Everybody's so focused on their own life, what's going on around them. I get caught up in this, guys. I get caught up in my own thinking, my own brain, that it's like I just go through stores and I'm just in my own world. And sometimes the Lord stops me and says, would you just look up, please? Would you just look at the people's faces that you're encountering right now? You may never encounter them again. Would you just smile right now? Look like you have joy? I know you're in your head and I know you're thinking of all the thousands of things that you have to do, but could you just take this moment with me and look up? And it's those little moments of obedience with him that are love. Because we've learned, right? Yesterday we learned, and we've learned over the last few weeks, that obedience to him is love. And so we really need to focus on, like, where in my life have I been working out my selfish muscle where it's always been about me, where it's grumbling and complaining, even if it's not out loud. Because here's the thing, the things that don't come out of your mouth are still rolling around in your heart, right? And then they usually end up coming out. Sometimes in an explosion. But if they're the things that are rumbling around in your heart and you're not doing anything about them, you really need to have Jesus come in and bring his truth to them. Share them with one of us. Get it out. It's nothing that we have never heard before. It's something that we've never thought before. This is a lot. Yep, it is. Level 1 can be a lot sometimes. Can feel like a lot. Can feel overwhelming. It can feel like, oh, what did I get myself into? Right? But here's the thing is that our whole lives, we've done things that are hard. But the more willing that we've been to do them, most likely it's because of selfish reasons, because somehow it's benefited you. And here's the thing, it's not like this isn't going to benefit you. That's the crazy thing about God. He's like, give me all of it and I'll make your life incredible. Not without storms, right? But storms don't last forever. They might last for a few days, or in our case, a few seasons, right? But they don't last forever. So he's not saying, hey, give me your life and I'm going to make your life a living hell for the rest of your life because you gave it to me. I'm going to make sure that you are squeezed at every corner. No, he's not like that. But the thing is we have that perception of God because our life has felt like that when it's been all about us. And when we continually shift our focus to him, shift our focus to him, shift our focus to him, shift our focus to him. Jesus, my eyes were on myself and I was getting tired and grumpy and complainy and judgmental. I'm going to put my eyes on you because this is what I know for a fact. You called me to this season, whatever it looks like, whatever I'm being asked to do, whatever I'm challenged in, you've called me to this season and I say yes. I submit myself to you again. Show me what it is to have love. Show me what it is to walk in love. Show me what it is to receive your love. Jesus knows what it is to ask God to change his mind. Because in the garden before he went on the cross, he went before his Father and he said, Father, if there's any other way, if there's any other way, if this can be done any other way. He knew full well it couldn't. He knew it couldn't. If there's any other way. And then he did what we all need to recognize and continue to do in our life. But your will be done. If there's no other way, your will be done. I will drink this cup. Your will be done. If there's no other way. He knows what it's like to head into a season of torture, heartache, betrayal, devastation, murder. He knows what it's like to feel those emotions because he was human. And he knows what it's like to go before the Father and to say, Father, if there's any other way, but not my will, your will be done. It's okay for us to go to him to say, God, is there any other way? Is there any other way? And if there's no other way, your will be done, not mine. And in that, being able to walk in that, being able to be in the eye of the storm with his love surrounding you, even in the pain, even in the hurt, even in the sorrow, even in the grief, even in the frustration, even in the disappointment, but to allow him to meet you in that place and to say, Lord, this is your will and I don't understand it. And I'm going to cry through it. And I'm going to get mad through it. I'm going to be frustrated through it. But I know that you're with me. And I know that you're here. And I don't understand the outcome. And I don't understand what tomorrow will look like. And I don't understand what next year will look like. But I said your will be done and I stand on that. And those conversations with God are necessary. Those conversations in life with God are necessary, and they should be happening on a daily basis. Lord, what is happening here? It's like, it's funny because it's like, nobody's exempt from this. We literally are in the season, right? Where it's like, where I'm constantly forgetting. I haven't even talked to you about this. I haven't talked to you about my frustrations. Jesus, I'm frustrated. I haven't even come to you about it. I just am doing life on my own. I get caught up in my independence. I get caught up in doing it on my own. Slipping back into old Lisa, old thinking, old patterns, old behaviors. Right? And then I teach a class. And he's like, oh, so are you going to have a conversation with me now? So are you going to walk this out later today? Yeah, I am, actually. It's like, oh, I haven't even come to you about that problem yet. I've been trying to solve it on my own. Because it's just, you get into it. You get inside of it, right? You start looking at all the things and you're like, oh my gosh, what are we going to do? How are we going to do this? How are we going to make it? How are we going to survive? It's just like, okay, Jesus, this is what you've said your will for our life is. And if you've said that this is your will for our life, then I will gladly give away whatever it is you have given me. I will gladly give it to you. I will gladly give it to the people in front of me. I will gladly walk out whatever it is you put in front of me, even if I don't like it, because not my will, but your will be done. And that's how we work out this selfless muscle. That's how we tell the old nature to die. That's how we say, you're first, you sit on the throne. Everybody else comes under that, and I'm at the bottom. We don't like to be at the bottom. I don't like to be at the bottom. I like to have my needs met. But if I'm putting everybody else under the umbrella of him being first, if he sits on the throne of my life, then everybody else comes before me, and I come at the bottom. But I know for a fact, because I've witnessed it, I have examples of it, and I've lived a life of it, where he will come through. He does come through. He takes care of me. He always has. He won't stop today. Right? And there are some things that I'll look at and I'll say, hey, that person just got a breakthrough in that. I'm going to have a breakthrough too. And maybe I can't lean on my own experience yet in that area, but I can look to somebody else and say, they got a breakthrough. He's in the business of breakthroughs. They got a breakthrough. He met them in that. It might look differently for me, but I know you'll meet me in this. Right? There's lots of different stories in the Bible of selfless love. One of them is the parable of the Good Samaritan. It's found in Luke 10. It's about a story of a man from Samaria who encounters a robbery victim on the side of the road. The Samaritan has compassion on the man who has been stripped and beaten and left for dead. And the Samaritan immediately puts on his own plans on hold and tends to the man's wounds. And not only does he do that, but he actually takes out his own assets and he makes sure that he's taken care of until he's healed. And he pays for him to have a place to stay. We're given these examples because it's easy to walk by when you have your own plans. It's easy to miss what he's doing when you're so focused on you. It's easy to miss the love that he has for you and through you when we're attached to our phones or when we're in our brains with the millions of things that we have to do. And so my constant prayer is, Lord, just tap me on the shoulder. When I get too distracted, tap me on the shoulder. When I've stopped living what you've asked me to live, tap me on the shoulder. Get my attention. He's very kind to do it. He's very faithful in it. Would you tap me on the shoulder when I'm too distracted to see the person in front of you that needs my help? We were driving down the street the other day on the way to his soccer game. Johnny was in North Carolina. And there's a man with a wheelchair trying to get in his wheelchair, but he's having a difficult time in Southside on Oral Banker. And I'm kind of like at a stoplight. I'm running late. Benton's soccer game. I just have the 2 kids with me. Don't have Johnny. And I'm like, what do I do, Lord? What do I do? So I kept driving. And halfway down the road, the Lord said, I told you to stop. Will you obey me? And I'm like, yes, I will. And he was like, the only thing I'm asking you to do is to ask him if he needs help. If he says yes, help him. If he says no, keep driving. But will you obey me? And I was like, yes, because I have my 2 children. Not just because, but I also have my 2 children in the car, which they need a really good example of what their mom is doing for Jesus, right? Here's a great example of obedience, which is love. Putting our plans on hold to meet somebody else's. So I whip around. They're like, what are you doing, Mom? And I said, the Lord asked me if I will help a man that's over there struggling. So we're going to go see if he needs help. And they said, okay. And so we stop and I said, excuse me, sir, do you need help? And he says, no, I'm fine. And I said, are you sure you don't need any help? He says, I'm fine, thank you. I said, okay, well, you have a blessed day. The Lord asked me to stop and ask you that. But you have a really, really good day, okay? And he's like, thanks. I was obedient. I drove off. But it's in those moments that I don't know what the outcome will be. I don't see anything other than what my obedience did. My obedience taught 2 kids in the back seat that you stop for Jesus no matter what. That you do a U-turn and you turn around and you go back when he asks you to. And that you attempt to love someone, but then it's their choice whether they'll receive it. Right? And so it's just those little examples of when we get busy in our own schedules, when we get busy in our own days, when we get busy in our own stuff. It's hard to see when we need to look up. But pray and ask him, would you just tap me on the shoulder and tell me when to look up? Would you tap me on the shoulder and tell me when it's time? When I need to stop for somebody, when I need to be there for somebody, when I need to offer somebody something. Okay? Any questions? All right, let's pray. Jesus, I just thank you so much for what you're doing in our life. I thank you that we are here because you have asked us to be here. We are here because this is what your will is for our life for this moment in time. And we have said yes to you. So even if it's hard, it doesn't change that this is your will. Even when it's tiring, it doesn't change that this is your will. No matter what, above all else, Jesus, I ask that we would be able to find joy in selflessness, that we'd be able to find the peace that you offer, and that we would have floods and floods and floods of love. You were selfless for us. You gave up everything. You came from heaven to earth, giving up your rightful place on the throne to become a man in flesh and dwell among us, to give your life for us so that we might have the possible opportunity to choose you. Not that we will, it's not a guarantee, but you did it for the possibility. And I ask, Lord, that you would teach us how to love people for the possibility of what they could have. And that we would not get weary in that. but our eyes would be on you, and our choices would be for you, in obedience to you. In your mighty name, amen.
Thank you for listening to this episode of Refuse Ordinary. We hope you were encouraged, inspired, and even challenged to seek more of who God is and who you are in Him. If you have any questions about the School of Transformation or would like to apply for our next semester, please go to transformationschool.org or send us an email at info@transformationschool.org. See you next time.